Hi, so my name is Matthias Tam. I'm a Northeastern Physical Therapy student. I am here to present to you about adaptive pickleball. This video and presentation is sponsored by the Boston Self-Help Center to bring you more information about adaptive sports. So what is adaptive pickleball in the history of the sport? So adaptive pickleball was officially recognized by the United States Pickleball Association 2016. This is fairly important because before this, there's no standardized rules for the game, which is kind of played either with your own rules or kind of within your own set of people that you're playing with. So it's very important that in 2016 that they came out with a standardized set of rules for players that played in wheelchairs because one, it allowed for more basically players be able to play with, basically having a mix and match of players that were in wheelchairs and players that were not. So it basically allowed for more accessibility to the sport in general. And so here's a great video on what adaptive pickleball is and the rules and requirements that you kind of really need to, in order to play the sport.
Two picklers want to continue the Para Pickleball series. Thought it'd be helpful to do a video on how to play the game so that you can get out there and start playing as soon as possible. We'll continue working on some of the videos about the mechanics of how to hit particular shots and things like that. But in this video, we're just going to go over the entire point so you can get out there and start playing. So let's get into it. Let's go ahead and look at the anatomy of a point here. What we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at a point from the 2019 US Open Para Pickleball exhibition match that was played down in Naples. You'll see the names of the players here. It's Philippe Bedard and Jean-Francois Sylvestre on our side. And on the other side, you'll see Michael O'Leary and Joe Sullivan. All four of them are excellent pickleball players, and we use some of the rallies in this match in order to show you how to play the game. If you're not familiar with the terminology of a pickleball court in terms of what the baseline is or what the kitchen is and things like that, I'll link to a video above and below so you can look at that video and get a sense of what things on a pickleball court are called. In this video, I want to focus on specifically how it is to play a para pickleball point and not get into the details of how to score and things like that. If you need that information, again, we'll link to it above and below. Let's go ahead and break the point down to its different pieces so that you understand how the point is built or what the anatomy of the point is. In this point, Philippe and Jean-Francois are the serving team. You'll notice that both of them are positioned behind the baseline on the court. That's because there's a two-bounce rule, which I'll explain in a minute in pickleball, that makes them stay in that position. Michael and Joe, who are on the return team, are in a different position than Philippe and Jean-Francois. Joe, as the returner who's going to hit the ball, is back at the baseline. Michael, even though he's on the return team, isn't actually going to return the ball. That's going to be Joe who returns the ball. So Michael is actually positioned on the court up or near the no volley zone or kitchen zone line at the time of the serve. Philippe is going to execute his serve, and then the teams are going to move into their positions as a serve and return team. What you see here is the two bounce rule. So Philippe and Jean-Francois have to let the return bounce before they can hit it, so they can't hit it in the air like in a volley. The reason they were behind the baseline at the time the serve was hit was because of this rule. So since the ball has to bounce, they stay behind the baseline so that they can't be forced backwards with the return. It allows them to come forward after the returner serve to hit the next shot, which in pickleball is called the third shot. On the other hand, the returner, Joe in this case, doesn't have to wait until the ball bounces before moving. So as soon as Joe hits that ball, he's moving forward to join Michael up at the no volley zone or kitchen line. In pickleball, you want to make sure that you get up to the no volley zone or kitchen line as soon as possible because it's a game that is dictated by controlling that part of the court. Philippe and Jean-Francois move forward here and then execute what's generally referred to as a third shot in pickleball. It's a really important shot in pickleball and is unique to the game. So they're going to hit the third shot here as the serving team moving forward, start making their way up to the no volley zone or kitchen line here. Pickleball is really important to learn how to dink or how to play a soft game. Jean-Francois here is hitting what's referred to as a dink. It's basically a soft or drop shot that is intended to land inside the kitchen on the other side of the court. After the two bounces, so the serve bounce and the return bounce, you can hit the ball either by letting it bounce or hitting it in the air, which is termed a volley, as long as you're not inside the kitchen or no volley zone. And we'll explain that rule in a minute. You'll see here an exchange of a few volleys between Jean-Francois, Philippe, and Joe. Ultimately, the ball lands in the net, ending the point. Let's look at another point from the vantage point of the return team. Jean-Francois.
So one thing that it gets kind of explained later on, but it'll be a very long video if it wasn't, was basically knowing what the no volley or the kitchen zone is. It's just basically an area that you're not allowed to go into. And that's just one clarifying point from that video. But so it explains kind of what basically how you would initially start, and that's the most complicated part of pickleball is just the initial serve. Once you get past that, kind of the third, basically the kind of the third touch or third point, as they said in the video, it becomes a fairly straightforward game. So what strengths and abilities do you need to play basically pickleball, basically adapt to pickleball, is that you need the ability and kind of the dexterity to be able to use a paddle, as well as you need to build the ability to be able to use a wheelchair. If you kind of don't really have the dexterity to be able to use a paddle, it'd be very tough just with the types of serves and types of hits you're going to do. Example being like in the previous video, they talked about how you have a soft game as well as being able to kind of spike the ball as well. You just kind of need some of those abilities in order to really play the game, but to play it to kind of be have most fun while you play. So how can you get involved in adaptive pickleball? So there are many ways. You can join a club through the United States Pickleball Association. So you can go to their website, select the state that you're from, and then join or even contact clubs through that. There's also Maine Adaptive Sports and Recreation, which is basically an organization that has lots of adaptive sports you can play, including pickleball. Issue is because we're in Massachusetts and this is all the way up in Maine, travel could become potentially a problem, but it's a very good resource. One, you can even start your own organization or own a membership even on USA Pickleball. And there are even local options that aren't necessarily advertised, but you could go to many gyms and YMCAs and things along those lines that actually will have pickleball basically played for a certain, like an hour here and there, that you can potentially even find as well. So if there are not any resources or kind of any local, basically anything local that you can find, how can you make your own resources? So the great thing about pickleball is that you don't really need too much to be able to play. You really just need kind of an area and a couple of pieces of equipment. So some very popular basically locations that you can play are basically any type of gym space, an outdoor tennis or basketball court, even pickleball courts are popping up. And one of the great things is that you can even make your own court. So an outdoor tennis court or an outdoor basketball court, you can even make your own court. You can even make your own court in any area that has a blacktop, like even like a wide open just area of blacktop or a parking lot potentially. So this is a great video that basically shows how you would make a just make a court on your own.
Hey, welcome to Pickleball 411. I'm Rusty. We're going to show you how to take a paved surface and mark it off with chalk and painter's tape in order to set up a temporary court. Now we're using the USAPA court dimensions, but don't worry about being exactly perfect because the important thing is to just get out there and play. The tools you need are a temporary net, 3 25-foot tape measures, chalk, and painter's tape. First, you have to set up the net. The USAPA has a great temporary net that's easy to set up, so we asked some neighborhood kids to help us out. The next step is to measure out the outside lines of the court using the 3 measuring tapes. Place your measuring tape about a foot inside the net as your starting point for one sideline, then pull the tape out to 22 feet. For the baseline, place your second measuring tape at the 22-foot mark of the sideline tape and simply extend the baseline tape out 20 feet.
One thing to note in this video is you don't need 3 tape measures. You could very easily do it with one.
Sideline, start at the net and pull the measuring tape 22 feet and connect it to the 20-foot mark of your baseline measuring tape. So now you should have something that looks like this. Okay, so it's time to mark. Just run your chalk along the edge of the measuring tape all the way down, starting with the sideline, and remember, it's okay if it's not perfect. Now go ahead and mark your baseline with chalk, and as you're doing it, mark the midpoint at 10 feet. So now our outside edges are marked with chalk. The next step is to mark the non-volley line. Now walk the baseline measuring tape all the way up to the 7-foot mark of the sideline measuring tapes. Then run your chalk along the edge of the measuring tape, and when you get halfway, go ahead and make a mark at 10 feet. Then finish drawing your non-volley line. Using the same measuring tape you used to mark the non-volley line, just rotate 90 degrees and connect the 2 midpoints you marked at 10 feet. It's time to make your final mark. Run your chalk along the edge of the measuring tape all the way down to create your center line. Okay, all that's left is to just tape along the chalk lines. Just hold one end, stretch it all the way out.
So this video just really shows that if you don't have gym space available or own pickleball courts that are already made in your area, you can make your own court, and it's fairly inexpensive to make your own court. And it's actually fairly easy as well. You can find a local basketball court and set up basically a pickleball court there. So kind of what do you need in terms of equipment or any memberships? So a membership isn't necessarily something that's 100% needed in order to play, but it could definitely become helpful in order to organization in terms of finding locations or basically some of those aspects. But really all you need are basically your paddles, a net, and potentially a tape measure in order to basically set up your own court. But also one thing you might kind of have to do is like potential cost of kind of renting out some gym space. That's if you want to use a gym or if you want to rent out a pickleball court. Maybe even USA Pickleball membership could cost some money as well. But in general, pickleball is a fairly inexpensive sport, but it can become more costly depending on the kind of the quality of the equipment you really want. Paddles will usually run around $10 to $15 for each, and again, a net could range anywhere from $50 to $100. But if you only need, let's say, if you're trying to support 10 players, it's actually going to be just generally one-time purchases, and then that's going to basically supply you for potentially years in terms of the equipment that you're actually going to need. So the upfront costs are not super expensive, and then the costs for basically the sport as you keep playing is not too bad as well. So here's some contact information if you want to learn more about adaptive sports or adaptive pickleball. You can contact the Boston Self-Help Center here at their email or their phone number. You can even contact Pierre. He is the PCO Pickleball Coordinator for Pickleball Canada. Here is the contact information for him there. Thank you for listening and watching my presentation.